it's a wonderfully hopeful film.
Yeah.
In that regard. Even though it begins with a threat of apocalypse, it ends with this sort of Star Trek reminder that we can aspire to better things. You know,
Well,
Star Trek is about what we could be at our best.
And this is something that's not, you know, unique to Star Trek the Motion Picture. It's what I love. I'm actually more of a Star Trek guy than a Star Wars guy. Not that you have to pick a side, but, you know, if I was forced, that's the side that I land on. Because I do love that sort of optimistic view of the future. You know, it's showing humans kind of at their best, and you know, it feels like a warm blanket to sort of hope, you know, when I watch an episode of Star Trek that, you know, we can aspire to be like that and be inclusive and really thoughtful in the way that we solve problems. And, you know, they sort of twist it around in Deep Space Nine a little bit, but especially this early Trek, the humans were always the good guys, which, no, that's not realistic in the slightest, but I enjoy that as, you know, as entertainment.
Yeah,
certainly.
it's nice, and it's rare. I think it's more and more rare these days. If you think about Star Trek the Motion Picture, there's not really a villain in it.
No.
I mean, the V'ger is not a bad guy, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's just looking for something, and so there's not too many movies where you can say there's no bad guy.
Yeah.
I think one of the other things that Star Trek did, and I mean, this has obviously become much more relevant over the years, is people were getting a chance to go to the movies now to see something they had only enjoyed on television, and to see the big budget version, like sort of larger than life, with lots of money now for sets and effects that they just didn't have when they were producing the show in the 60s.
It's true.
Although they were
virtually unheard of, I think, right?
The movie sort of famously ran into all kinds of production problems. It was a big challenge to make that movie. You know, it was behind schedule, it was over budget, and they were reusing sets from, again, the Phase 2 television show that didn't get off the ground. You know, so it's kind of a miracle that it came together at all.
Yeah, yeah, and it was directed by Robert Wise, who was a Hollywood legend. You know, he's a guy who did like Sound of Music and West Side Story, which doesn't necessarily sound like the right fit for a Star Trek movie, but I don't know. But they did have a lot of problems making that film, and I think that the studio expected it to be a disaster.
Yeah.
And as you pointed out, it actually made money for them, and as we know, the franchise continues.
I mean, then when you add in Generations and all the Next Generation type stuff, I mean, it spawned a franchise that's phenomenal in the movie theaters.
Yeah. If it had, I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
if it had just gone to the Phase 2 TV show it was supposed to do in the mid-'70s, that could have been the end of it. It could have been a middling show, but the classic Star Trek never did great ratings, the TV show. And so if it had just been a sequel show that kind of came about because of the fan need for that, it probably would have done okay ratings, who knows, and that could have just been the end of it. But this movie gave us, as you say, all the rest of it.
And people sort of hold that original series in such high regard, but it was just 3 seasons. I mean, it wasn't anywhere near what Next Generation was, which followed it.
Yeah.
We Star Trek would go on to another piece of research that I sort of found preparing for the show was that it had the biggest opening weekend of any movie ever at the time it came out. It made $11 million, and you know, its final run it made money, not a gigantic amount of money, but that sort of opening weekend, let's all rush out and see it right away. You know, Star Trek did that better than anything else that had come before. Wow.